Even more disappointing was Mr. Pompeo's tepid responses to questions about his commitment to bedrock principles like rule of law. As important and difficult as our foreign policy decisions are, the nation is facing a great test. The President seems to tempt rule of law in America when it comes to the investigation of whether there was collusion between his administration, his campaign, and Russia. And a key position like Secretary of State should be able to speak out on this kind of issue, because America is recognized throughout the world as the country that most prizes rule of law. So if our Secretary doesn't speak out strongly against this, it's not only bad for our country, but not good for his job, his ability to do his job around the world. Mr. Pompeo responded when put to the question as whether he would stand up to the President. Would he resign or otherwise protest the President's actions that would undermine rule of law? His answers were weak. He did not say he would resign if the President fired Mueller or Rosenstein. To me, a cabinet officer should do that. He did not even unequivocally state that he would publicly urge the President not to fire Mr. Mueller. So that wasn't good enough. But I thought I owed again Mr. Pompeo a direct discussion, because he is a talented man, and the President does deserve the benefit of the doubt. So I called him into my office for one private meeting, one final meeting. I asked him pointedly whether he'd be able to simply say publicly that the President shouldn't fire Special Counsel Mueller before we voted on him. I asked him what he'd do if the President fired the Special Counsel or Mr. Rosenstein. His answers, extremely insufficient. I also asked him if he'd be willing to recant or undo some of what he said about Muslims and Indian Americans, LGBTQ Americans, and women's rights, now that he was in line to be our Secretary of State and had to deal with countries that might be affected by his remarks. Again, he demurred. So when he left that meeting, I emerged with a clear conscience that a vote against Mr. Pompeo's nomination was the right thing to do. I still believe a president deserves his team, and that disagreements on policy alone are not a sufficient reason to reject a nomination. But I gave Mr. Pompeo the benefit of the doubt and 3 chances to answer the questions that I thought were extremely important and assuage my broader concerns about his nomination. He did not answer those questions in any way that was satisfying.